Hello, this is Dale Matthews, and I'm joined by Mike Jones. Hello, Mike Jones.
Hey Dale, I really wish you wouldn't point that gun at me.
Well, I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to be sure to get your attention. Do I have your undivided attention, Mister
Yes.
Heck? I think I do.
I see that it's loaded as well, so that's even more scary. You're not bluffing.
No, no, and there's only two things that make him react this way: a loaded pistol and a grandmother with cookies.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
Well, she's not really a grandmother, but she's old enough to be a grandmother, and so are a
She's
number
not
of other people
grandma.
that we know. I don't
Yes.
think so.
Yes.
Anyway, soon enough.
I also have a grandmother.
Oh, really? I
Yes.
had two of them.
Yeah, I had two as well. Yes.
You did?
Yes,
A
I did.
small world.
Yes,
So
that's amazing.
I don't know why we deserve two, but somehow we do. So I'm working on a video now. I think you guys will enjoy a little bit later. And that's a video of Keith Heck explaining to everybody, or actually asking the question, where do you come up with the idea that commissioners are enriching themselves in office? What a
Mm.
stupid idea. So at the weekly business session, I endeavored to explain to him where we would come up with such a maniac idea. Just based on the fact, just one of them is based on the fact that they are now under investigation by the State Ethics Commission into their various shenanigans. So it's not just, oh, you're so hard on them now. No, no. The State Ethics Commission, which investigates almost nothing. Aren't you about ethics? Well, no, not really. No? So anyway, they're even looking into Simon Hare and Cheryl Walker. And Simon's keeping quiet, buddy. But Cheryl's, oh, well, we're doing absolutely nothing. Well, there's nothing to see here. You can move along. Yeah, brother. It's going to be a fun video.
It's all perfectly legit, they say. And now, listen, the structure of the business may be perfectly legit, but I think we all understand that they're in this business because of the information that they are privy to, that they probably aren't sharing with people who they may be competing with in that same business. So
We
they
see
do
that, a
have,
lot of that. And Mike and I
yes,
discovered that this company or Hempco or something like that was
yes,
started back in March. Oh,
yeah,
really?
interesting.
So what was happening back in March? But it wasn't. I thought it came up all of a sudden. Turns out that these guys have been working. These characters, these commissioners, have been working on this for quite a while. In March, really?
Well, I mean, I assume that they have sort of a preview of what's to come well before we do. It makes sense that they would.
It does sound like insider information, doesn't it?
Yeah, kind
Anyway,
of. Yeah.
so we'll see. But yeah, they're being investigated, and mostly this investigation is around the idea that they use county facilities to help enrich themselves by sending out a letter, an emergency letter, you may recall, and it wasn't on the agenda and was brought up suddenly by someone. Well, we got to do this right away. And then Cheryl Walker's, yeah, we sure do. And Keith Heck, as usual, is kind of like, huh? Anyway, so they sent out this letter urging Salem, please don't change the rules about hemp. They didn't tell us
Yeah.
that would affect their personal bottom line. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm not holding out great hopes that the state's going to do anything about anything, except if I sneeze the wrong way, and that's painful, the state would be all over me. So anyway, so I deserve it. So
Yes.
we talked with the sheriff, and I want to assure you, he does own more than two shirts, one bright blue and the other bright
Yes.
orange.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's just that we're conserving videotape here. We don't want to shoot a whole bunch of these things. We want to shoot one and break it up into little pieces so as to yeah, that doesn't really work. What I'm
No, and
trying
the
to get
fact that
at,
it's
but
not actually
that's
videotape also adds to that, But okay, the iron
yes,
oxide coating might run off of it. Maybe
yes.
it's all digital now, but you don't
But
care about that.
this is unusual because normally on the night when we're talking about the charter, we have Wally on, but tonight we have the sheriff because he's talking about the topic that we wanted to talk about, that which is part of the charter, which is the Second Amendment
Now, how did this?
portion.
Now, no, we're interested in this anyway. But Mike, how did this subject come up?
Oh, there was a guy in social media there who asked the question. He wanted to know, um, how do the sheriff and the police chief come down on this? And this is Jared Brown's post, and the gist of it here, when you get down in it a little bit, he says, "I really want to request that Dale and Mike do a segment with our sheriff and police chief here and make them share their beliefs regarding the Second Amendment for the citizens of this county and city." And so that just sort of spawned this question, but we were going to be talking to him anyway about a number of things. And I originally thought this was a dumb idea to ask him about this game because we had already asked him about it, and he had given me the answer: guns are not the answer. And so that really did need to be explored a little bit deeper, because that's kind of not a very good answer, I guess.
He seems to have come from that place where there are plenty of people who feel this way, especially inside the city. Remember, he was a city patrolman, coming from the place where you should leave your safety up to the professionals, and we should leave all of our monetary needs up to the professionals.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he does seem to subscribe to that. And then when we talk to him, oh, no, I'm a strong proponent of the Second Amendment. Okay, well, what do you think about citizens with guns? Well, you're going to find out. He's going to tell you.
Yeah, and I understand to a greater degree that one might rely on, perhaps rely is not the right word, on assistance to arrive. In the city where you have a 4-minute response time, it's likely that you're going to get somebody there in a reasonable period of time. Although, even with those kind of numbers, I would still like to have, because things can happen in a split second. You're dealing with somebody who's an immediate threat to you. You don't have time. 4 minutes is 4 minutes too long,
Well, especially if it's 3.5 minutes goes by, and then the guy's in your house, oh, too bad, it was only 4 minutes.
Yeah, right. Exactly. They get there 30 seconds after you're dead or something. But I do understand it in the case of, I would still want to have a gun. That's just me. That's just my own personal feeling about it. But anyway, we are going to play this segment with the sheriff, but there's a couple of other pieces that go with it. He mentions during the segment a mention of something he said in a magazine, and this is the front cover of the magazine here. It's First Freedom: The Rise of the Armed Citizen. And inside this magazine,
that's a really big gun there,
yes,
opposed to the size of that guy that's pointing at it.
Yes. And so really, I guess the question is how far do you think the Second Amendment should go? Should we be able to own howitzers? Because apparently this is about the size that is compared to this car.
That's not, you couldn't really conceal that very well.
Yes, that would be hard to conceal, especially with the
that paint job.
The standout paint job there would be hard. But anyway, this is the little teeny piece of a column where the sheriff's words
sidebar
ended up. Yes. It says, "Sheriff won't enforce proposed laws. A county sheriff in Oregon, where lawmakers are considering a restrictive measure mandating universal background checks, says he won't enforce the law if it is passed. Josephine County Sheriff Dave Daniel, said the proposed law is not in line with his county's charter. Plus, it would make violations only a misdemeanor, problematic because his department is shorthanded. I can't enforce the law, so therefore it won't be enforced. It doesn't fit on my scale of priorities, Daniel told the Daily Courier. Oh, so we can depend on this.
Oh, that's where this came from. No
yes,
wonder he said, well, they didn't really get it right. Well, yeah.
Yes. I have felonies going on a daily I have felonies going on daily in Josephine County. That's my priority. So in any event, that's the magazine that he is going to reference during this interview.
Right. Okay. Well, that explains it because he slides it to us, but you can't really see it. Okay.
Right. Yes.
Based on the Daily Courier. Wow. Wouldn't you know it? That's just great. Okay. So we have this videotape insert for you. You can watch the sheriff talking about this. And when we come back, I'll try to have a more pleasant environment around me. Okay.
Okay.
Don't worry.
If we're talking about optional enforcement, something similar would apply in the case of SB 941 or something of that nature.
Senate Bill 941.
Yeah, that's the background checks, transfers.
Oh,
firearms.
Well, that's prioritization. That's prioritization. You're talking about, we, like I said, we prioritize our caseloads, person crimes, property crimes. That's a non-person, non-property situation. So where does it fall on the list of priorities?
So where is your, because I could have sworn that you were on record saying that you weren't going to enforce that, but a lot of people say a lot of different things about that. So
I think
what's your angle?
It's context is how it's taken. I'm conservator of the peace that's my mission. That's my job. I have to uphold the laws to the best of my ability and all laws in the state of Oregon, and including the charter for Josephine County. And I'm pulling out this magazine here. It's called Freedom: The Rise of the Armed Citizen. Freedom First. It's an NRA magazine, and in this magazine they quote me as stating that I won't do that. And many members across the nation have praised me for what they thought I said or think that I said. I said that that particular bill or that particular law is not that I won't enforce it. It's that I can't enforce it. I don't have the time on the prioritization level to enforce that law. Mm-hmm. If I did, different ball game. Then it's a whole different situation. But I don't, and I'm not gonna have bodies anytime in the near future, or in the future, maybe at all in my tenure. And that's that article in that magazine there, State of Oregon.
Now on the same topic, we had one of our viewers posted a question or a request of us that says, I really want to request that Dale and Mike do a segment with our sheriff and police chief here and make them share their beliefs regarding the Second Amendment for the citizens of this county and city. So what's your angle on
We're
that?
here to make you do things.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, anything else I can do for you guys? A sandwich? What cheese you want?
Yes.
Ham sandwich.
On that, yeah, ham, perfect. Bologna?
No,
we're going to leave that up to the commissioners.
I'm just reading what he wrote here.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I don't know Bill's stance. I can't speak for Chief Landis' stance on that.
Well, what's yours?
On what?
On the Second Amendment. And
I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment, and I think that bill is completely unfortunate. I can state that publicly. I think that bill is unfortunate. I think it infringes on our Second Amendment rights. It doesn't take away our Second Amendment rights, but it infringes upon them. I think it muddies the water. It makes I think it's a waste of money. Ultimately, it's just a waste of money. If the bad guys are going to get guns, whether me selling a gun to Dale or Dale selling a gun to me, it has to be background checked. Bad guys are going to get guns. They need to look at things like what's our mental health going on in our criminal justice system. The mental health issues in the jail we have here. We end up being a warehouse for people with those types of illnesses, and we shouldn't be here. They should be in a place where they can get better care. But the state of Oregon doesn't have that better care. They'd rather do background checks on people that want to buy a deer rifle from a buddy for their kids to go hunting. It doesn't.
Yeah, agreed. The recent case here in South Carolina really highlights some of the similarities between a lot of these mass shooters, is that they all are on some sort of psychotropic or some psychiatric medication.
Yep.
And instead of being put in treatment as they once were, now they're out on the streets taking over-the-counter medication. What's your angle on that?
This, just like you said, it can't. Obviously, my angles. I'm not happy with that. And as a matter of fact, I have a forensics little summit coming up on Wednesday. I'm going to go to with Judge Wilkie, who's very active in trying to assist the mentally ill through the criminal justice system and getting them proper help. Little things like making sure our inmates that come in that need medication, number one, get that medication, even if it's paid for by us. But number two, when they're let out, have some supply of medication to get them by until they can bridge that gap. These psychotropic medications take up to 3 weeks to 5 weeks in that time frame to start taking effect.
Well, some cases are being made that these medications perhaps are the cause of some of these incidents, whereas and different theories abound on this, where you build up one's compulsions, and then all of a sudden they burst forth in and of course there's certainly nothing that you can do about that, but these are the theories that are being put out there, that some of these medications are indeed the cause of these situations.
Gosh, I don't know. I'm not a physician, so it's hard for me to answer that question, or impossible for me to answer that question. I know by experience, I can tell you that I once chased a man downtown Grants Pass who took off all his clothes, running completely naked. Tried to tase him. The taser malfunctioned at the time. I kept chasing him to try and get him under control. He was completely out of his mind. He tried to pick up a rock and kill me with it. And I saw him. I ended up taking him into custody. And I saw him four weeks later downtown, and he said, "Officer Daniel, I am very sorry. I totally apologize. I was not on my medication. I'm doing much better now." So, speaking from experience, I think they do help.
Yeah.
And the guy, and he was truly remorseful. And I said, absolutely. I said, "I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm glad you're doing well." So that's my take on that.
Wow.
You've had some things to say in the past about citizens who feel it's necessary to arm themselves, and about what you feel is the best policy about that in general. Do you recall what you've said? Could you characterize what you've generally said about that?
I didn't say I feel. I don't recall saying I feel that people need to arm themselves. I don't think I.
No, I don't think you said that either. But you have said some things about citizens who do feel they need to arm themselves. Do you recall any of that? Do you want us to refresh your memory?
Refresh my memory.
That? Okay.
I want to see where you go.
Well, I think it was our first interview that you said guns are not the answer, and it may well have been within the context of to our overall crime problem. But would you want to clarify? Recently, a number of sheriffs have made statements that sometimes your best bet is not sitting by the phone and waiting for law enforcement to arrive, and that perhaps if you feel that you can handle it, that you should get some firearms training and have a weapon. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally. If a person is, number one, eligible, therefore they haven't had the felony and they haven't had any type of mental illness and that sort of thing going on, and they can get a gun if they want one. Sure, I think it's great. I don't think. I mean, I'm all about people carrying. I have no issue with that at all. We hand out concealed weapons permits here, and for concealed carry, obviously, often every Monday we do that. So I'm very much behind the firearms, but there are some people that probably shouldn't have them, that maybe cannot, or maybe the elderly per se, depending on their abilities to do that. When you talk about a firearm, there's a high level of liability. Because once that bullet goes down range, it doesn't come. You can't get it back. Yeah. It doesn't. You can't turn the trajectory. So it's very important that people understand, both legally and physically, that those are components, I guess.
I'm always an advocate if someone is going to use a firearm or keep a firearm in their house, that they use it on a regular basis to make sure that they're still competent with
Absolutely.
it, because it is so, you'd think that, well, again, here's how it works. You pick it up, you pull the trigger. There's more to it than that.
Absolutely.
You work with them all the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, I was speaking to my neighbor in brief about the last two homicides that took place, and he's a physician, and he said that, you know, gosh, because of this thing, he's thinking about going out and getting a gun for the first time in his life. And I said, you know, maybe you go ahead if you feel you need to do that and get the training, certainly. But, you know, baby pepper spray is good for you too. You know, maybe just buying yourself some time to get away and create a break is also options for people.
Well, it's a commitment that you have to be ready to take on.
That's true.
There's more to it than just going and buying a gun.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. It's a lot of responsibility is what it is. It's a lot of responsibility for the people around you, your household, the children. I mean, you got to be responsible if you leave it in your car. I mean, there's, you know, certain bad things can happen involving guns. But, you know, a responsible citizen, absolutely.
Your predecessor encouraged people to arm themselves and to get training. He kind of took a lead in that.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a slightly different place. How would you compare your advocacy with his stronger advocacy?
It's about choice. It's about choice. If somebody feels they need that, you know, our Second Amendment says you can have it. Perfect. If they, but I certainly would not push it on someone. And I think that's the difference we're talking about.
What are the rules about someone comes at 3 o'clock in the morning and they're pounding on your front door and they sound like a maniac or something, and you decide as a citizen out there that you're going to hold a weapon nearby? Okay, so there are a couple scenarios. The guy bursts into your house. Can you shoot him? Does his foot have to be over? Does he have to be standing in your living room? Is it okay if he assaults you and as he's running away, you shoot him in the back? What are the rules?
You know, I wish I could give you all the rules because there are so many variables. You have to have, you know, there has to be a reason. There has to be some cause for you to take that type of lethal action. Your life has to be in danger, or someone else's life has to be in danger before you can do that. And so, you know, you've seen the court cases across the country, you know, where people are shooting people in the back and that sort of thing. You know, sometimes those people aren't just necessarily shot in the back on purpose because they're turning or they're twisting or they see you point the gun at them. So they're going to maybe make a movement that looks like you shot them in the back, yet they have every intention on they're going down to get a knife that left us just outside. So, so who knows? You know, is it as okay to shoot somebody in the back that's going to get a knife to kill you? Sure.
Right.
And, you know, so there's so many variables.
In that particular case, you could just have the belief that person is going to threaten your life. And as you said, they may be turning to pick up who knows what, or they're going to run outside to get a better angle at shooting you back or something like that. You know?
Yeah. Typically somebody coming into your house like that, though, that's a bad day. And, you know, that's a bad day. And you need to protect you and yours.
What's the biggest mistake, then, to sum that up, that people make if they have a firearm in the house and they've now made the wrong move when it comes to some perpetrator at their door?
What's the result of that?
You know, what's the biggest mistake where you would say, hey, don't do the following?
I think if you pull a gun, you better be ready to use it, number one. The other biggest mistake is people keep shooting themselves in the legs when they're cleaning their guns and things like that because they're irresponsible. So,
and that comes back to the question of competency and understanding your firearm, and you're not going to be able to do that unless you're using it on a regular basis. And
it's a huge responsibility. It's a huge responsibility, but it's our constitutional right. And I if people choose to buy and carry a firearm, good for them. I can tell you the people that go through the process properly and come in and get CHLs, concealed handgun licenses, those are friends, not foes in any way, shape, or form. And I saw that in Eastern Oregon when I was out in the rural counties, and I think it's here too. The bad guys are going to get the guns whether they do it through the processes or not. But I know as an officer, you know, back for the last 20 years, when I would pull somebody over and they would show me a concealed handgun license, or it would come over the radio that they have a concealed handgun license, that's a friend, in my opinion. And that's how I look at them.
Would you advocate if someone is being pulled over by a cop, what's the proper procedure? Because many people have a question about this. Personally, I pull both permits, so my driver's license and my permit, and hand that to the officer at the window. What
here's
do
what
you
I
think?
Here's what I would do as a citizen. If you're pulled over and you have a firearm inside your car, I would keep your hands up on the steering wheel and notify the officer right away that there is a firearm inside the vehicle. I do have a concealed handgun license. Okay. And then right there, you're setting the stage, at ease. Let the officer control the rest of the situation as far as when to get your driver's license or when to get your registration. That way they can give you certain instructions. And if you just follow them, it makes the whole stop much more safe for everybody.
For everybody. You there, Dale? Oh, you're
I hope that you've. Oh, isn't this much more pleasant now?
Yes, it's much better, and the color is quite similar.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's an orange shirted sheriff who's not armed at the moment, and daisies. That's sweet. I'm hoping that you found that was helpful to you. Yes, it was on a couple different subjects, but I would want to know if a police officer came and what order to do things. And basically what he was saying is, let the officer control the situation. Just put yourself in his hands. You can trust the police.
Well, this is a scary situation because, at what point do you go, oh, hey, by the way, officer, I have this gun right here.
No.
About how you do this. And yeah, I have before handed both permits out the window and not had a problem. The driver's license and the concealed handgun license, and not had an issue. But listen, I'm sure that cops have their preferences, and probably the way he laid it out is probably what most officers would prefer.
And I wanted to hear his take on people, because people do talk about this. What are the rules about somebody? Do they have to have 1 foot inside your doorway? What are the rules about that? Hopefully this will never happen to any of you. It'll be just this kind of life and not that kind of life. Okay. But it's a good thing to know what are the rules. And he kind of laid it out. It all depends. Oh, yeah. Well, that makes me feel much more comfortable.
Well, there really are so many variables, you have, everybody's seen CSI, and, people come in there and there's a million different elements to, how the evidence is laid out that tells you whether or not this was a murder or self-defense or any of these things. So, but the chances are, if a guy who you don't know, who's armed, is in your house in the middle of the night and you shot him, it's going to be pretty safe that you were defending yourself. I don't see, there's not going to be very many circumstances where that isn't a good shooting.
Well, as they say, if it does not fit, you must acquit.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And so we all need to get some undersized gloves then.
Right. Or you need to just spread your fingers apart. That's all he needed to do.
Yes. Well, not only that, is those gloves, if we may digress to 1994, were soaked in blood and probably had shrunk up quite a bit. And, I'm sure that they rehearsed how he was going to put those gloves on for quite a lot before it, happened. Hey.
Okay, now speaking of rehearsed, we did not. However, we're going to start going through. This will take the next 17 weeks or so. We're going to start going through what the charter says about your rights, and it being a home rule charter. Mike, do you feel comfortable with talking about how a home rule charter is supposed to or is designed to protect us as Josephine County citizens?
Yeah, and but the thing is,
this is designed.
The theory, and it is theoretical. Really, I would not. I mean, if it comes down to it, the charter is not going to be what saves you, sadly. It should, but it really isn't, because the conversations that we had with Wally don't really make me have a whole lot of I don't know,
faith in the system.
Yes, I
I
don't
mean,
have a whole lot
one
of
of the things
faith.
he didn't exactly say this, but it was sort of like, if you hold the charter up over your head like this
Yes.
on a rainy day,
Yes,
it'll protect you from some of the raindrops. That's your protection.
It'll be in nice umbrella, and that's this little thing that we're talking about is sort of tied up in the intent of each of these amendments. And so anyway, here, let's just get right into it. This is section 29.1 of the charter, and it says the intent of this charter amendment is to provide the citizens of Josephine County with local protection of one of their inalienable rights as originally defined by our founding fathers in the United States Constitution and Bill of Rights. Well, and we've gone over this. You're probably tired of hearing about it, but the big bugaboo in this paragraph is local protection and what that means. It's just affirming that, hey, we here in county government, we agree with the Second Amendment. And that's basically it as far as I'm concerned. You're going to have to fall back on the Constitution for your real protection in a court of law. I'm thinking the fact that the charter says that it backs the Second Amendment too is probably not your best argument.
Well, my favorite part is in section 2. It says, no elected or appointed officials of Josephine County shall pass or enforce any law, ordinance, resolution, administrative rule, or statute that denies or erodes any of the provisions of this charter amendment. Wow.
Yes. Yeah, and that's pretty heavy, but okay. So how are you going to hold them to this? Now, there is a section in this that does speak to that, and that's section 4. The county, the Josephine County Board of Commissioners and the Josephine County District Attorney must enforce all of the provisions of this charter amendment. This enforcement must include citing persons charged with violating this charter amendment by issuing them a Class B misdemeanor citation. No person shall be immune from such citation, regardless of any personal or official capacity whatever. Judicial proceedings regarding such citation shall follow the same as in the issuance of any other misdemeanor citation.
Now, I think it's valuable, if you don't mind, Mike, I think it's valuable to go over that sentence, no person shall be immune. Can you say that one again?
Okay, let's see here.
Right,
no person.
Yeah.
Yes, I got it. No person shall be immune from such citation, regardless of personal or official capacity whatever. Judicial proceedings regarding such citation shall follow the same as in the issuance of any other misdemeanor citation. So anybody if Keith Heck all of a sudden did something that was in violation of somebody's Second Amendment rights, depriving them, acting somehow to deprive them of their Second Amendment rights, then theoretically he would be guilty of this violation, and he would be cited by, I guess, the rest of the commissioners or the district attorney.
Now, it's too bad that this doesn't apply to the First Amendment rights, because they do that all the time.
Yeah.
And it's kind of ironic that this is the First Amendment to the Charter. You would think it should be the Second Amendment to the Charter. I wish they had started with number 1 saying, if you even erode our rights to speak, then you're going to be in trouble, and a Class B. They would have piled up their Class B misdemeanors by now.
Yes.
Okay. No individual within Josephine County shall be barred from seeking civil relief in the courts of Josephine County, except for the fact that the DA is not going to follow through on this. One reason the DA is not going to follow through on this is he gets part of his salary through the county commissioners. And so we've said, well, what about this thing with Simon Hare and the Medford police finding him guilty? Well, as much as they can, because they're not the judges, of filing a false police report. Are you going to follow? Are you going to at least look into it? No, I don't think that I will, because I get part of my salary. What? Really?
Yeah.
Talk about a get out of jail free card. He could never pursue anything about any county official because he gets part of his money from them. Why? I would have to recuse myself from that. Well, so do you wonder why they want to give him part of his salary? Well, of course. Okay.
Yeah.
Civil relief in the courts of Josephine County from any injury or potential injury arising from the violation of any of the provisions of this charter amendment. No person or body, politic or private, shall be immune from jurisdiction by the courts of Josephine County over matters arising from this charter amendment. This has teeth, or supposed to. Civil claims arising from this amendment shall be heard by a duly constituted jury in the courts of Josephine County, unless all parties named in such claims unanimously agree to adjudication of the claim solely by a judge of Josephine County courts. You get your day in court.
I'll take a jury, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Of your peers? Now, where are you going to find any peers?
Yes, I don't know. That's a good question. I have no peers.
Yes, that's true. But we'll talk about that another time.
Yes, that's a whole
the conflict clause. I want to read the severability part because that's about cutting off limbs. I like that part.
Okay. All right. You want me to read it?
Yeah, conflict.
Okay. The conflict clause. Any portion of this charter amendment is in conflict. If any, that's different. If any portion of this charter amendment is in conflict with any other provision of this charter, that portion most recently approved by a 2/3 vote of the voters of Josephine County shall prevail.
So I'm going to tell you my quick little story. I'll try to make it as quick as I can. So I go in to buy this used car, and the place where I'm getting it from has sort of a spotty reputation. So I say, all right, now I understand my deal is I give you a certain amount of cash, and then if I'm not pleased with the car, I can bring it back and I'll get my cash back. That's right. That's our policy. I said, I'll get my cash back. Right. I'm not going to get a check or a promissory note or some other. I'm going to get my cash back and then walk out the door. That's quite right. That's our guarantee. I said, I tell you what, then, why don't we just write out a small codicil, a small extra thing on here, and I'll write it out in regular English that says, we both agree that if I bring back this car within the allotted time, I think it was 2 days, that I will get cash back, no questions asked. I want cash back, and don't forget it's got to be cash. And we both signed it. So I had it investigated, looked into, and they said, "Oh man, it's a good thing you got that because this car is actually made of two different cars that were joined together in the middle with a kind of a weak joint, and they could break apart at any time." Whoa!
Nice.
So I went back to see this guy after part of one day. Well, you know, we're going to send you a check. I said, no. I've got this piece of paper that you signed. Boy, was he angry. Oh, I'm going to have to talk with my manager. I said, you go right ahead. I'm wait here for my cash. He came back and, boy, wait right now. I said, I got this on a piece of paper here, bud. And so he reached into the drawer and pulled out my cash.
Yes.
And
was
I know
it your
it was
cash?
my
Did you verify? Was it the same serial numbers on the same bills?
What? You know I did.
Okay.
I did. I only wrote down one of them, one of the numbers. But yeah, I wrote down that number, and sure as tootin', it was the one that was on the top. He hadn't even touched it. He hadn't even deposited it. And it was my money. And I walked out of there with cash, and boy, was he fit to be. He was angry. Well,
did he pull a gun anywhere in this?
No, he didn't do that, but he did pull out daisies.
Oh.
Look, the important thing here is I made sure that he knew that I wrote on there. And the reason I brought this up, just because it's an entertaining story, is not the reason.
Yes.
Because I wrote on there, if there's anything in this contract, and the contract with them was like 30 pages in tiny type, if there's anything at all in the contract that does not agree with this takes precedent.
Yes, and this is a very good lesson, people. If you're listening to this and you just glossed over that, you should not have, because that is very important. If you write out a little subcontract that states that if this is in violation of any part of the contract that I'm about to sign with you, if it's in violation of that, this takes precedence over it. That is huge.
That's maybe the most important part of all, is be sure that whatever, see, when they wrote this amendment, all of the amendments, they were so careful in how they wrote this. And so in order to get around it, it took full-time legal counsel and staff to figure out how can we arrange so that this is so that we can get rid of some of these things. And that's what happened. We got bamboozled on this. We got flapdoodled. We got whatever it is that the former treasurer of Josephine County used to say, the strangest things. I don't know where he came
as it relates to fees, that is.
That's right. That one was about fees, and they did an end run around us, and we no longer have any control over the fees. There are ways to handle this. One is the long-term way, where you take it back to the voters and you do it all over again. Looks like we're going to have to do that. The other way, in my opinion, is, and I've talked with Wally Hicks about this briefly, is couldn't it be that the commissioners, because commissioners have a lot of power, only thing is, who might take over those commissioner roles? You get two commissioners in there who believe that you're in charge, brother, bar the door, because they could say, yes, it is the rule, and we have been given some leeway on this, and the courts have ruled, but we're going to do it this way that it says in the charter anyway. No, you can't do that. No, we got out of that because Steve Rich went to court and got it. No, we're going to obey what the charter says. No, you can't do that. We could.
Well, listen. The thing to remember here, and this is where they caught us napping, the price of freedom / liberty is eternal vigilance. And so we really need to set up the Eternal Vigilance Committee or something.
Oh, brother.
Of a bunch of people that do nothing but watch for this stuff. I mean, literally make mistakes in assuming that they're doing this. You'd be better off than sitting around waiting and getting caught, smacked upside the head with these things after the fact. Far better for you to, be, standing there with a hair trigger, waiting to nail these people on something, even if you're wrong, because this is very, very important. They nailed us. I want to use stronger language. They nailed us, having to do with the thing with the fees, and we were napping. We were not, apparently the people that put the charter and all that, the amendments in place, they were paying attention. And then after that, everybody went to sleep because they thought, hey, it's all done.
Well, it can't be blamed on Mike Jones because he was living in another county at the time, significantly named Napa County.
Yes. And
he was asleep as far as what was happening in Josephine County. But the thing that we need,
at that time, I didn't even know what was going on in Napa County. So, far be it for me to be, speaking down to anybody on this, but in retrospect, looking at it now, I can see it's very clear that we were napping in this situation. We didn't see what was going on, and you have to parse the heck out of these measures that are getting floated to you, because somebody's in government is always trying to sneak something by you. So if you're going to vote on it,
in this case, they actually said this is going to smooth the process, so things will be even. And even with the way it was written is, it'll be much more fair kind of stuff. Using all these buzzwords.
Grab your wallet.
The way, yes, hold on to your wallet, right? And anytime you brush up against these guys, pat yourself down. Okay, not just fun, but yeah. So
yes.
The thing that we need to do is, it's not that we must always mistrust them, although that's probably not a bad idea at the moment. Yeah. But what we need to do is we just need to trust but verify, or whatever it was Ronald Reagan said to the Russians, and be educated. we're trying to do that with you. If you've got, I'm not going to watch that thing on Sundays because that's really boring. You know what? It's not as boring as you might think that it is, because we're trying to give you it starts off with information. We wouldn't even exist if we had a newspaper in this town.